We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
We no longer live in a world of nations and ideologies, Mr. Beale. The world is a business, Mr. Beale.
Go on without me. Just go.
A good soldier never leaves a man behind.
Because I wouldn't give you 2 cents for all your fancy rules if behind them they didn't have a little bit of plain, ordinary, everyday kindness.
Life, finds a way.
Welcome to Silver Screen Biases. Each week we pick a movie off of IMDb's Top 250 and dig into it. We're examining truth claims in critically acclaimed movies while also examining our own biases. I'm Nelson.
This is Jeff.
And this week,
The Seventh Seal.
This episode is brought to you by our community on Patreon. They make this show happen and you can help. Links to our Patreon and merchandise are in the show notes below. Now back to the show.
Nelson, how you doing today?
Allergies are wrecking me, dude.
We should move to Arizona.
Linked below, because by now that episode should be out. My brother-in-law Brad and I were on The Things We Say. We did an episode appearance there to discuss and explain what exactly is Christian anarchism. And it ended up going 2 hours. Their episodes are usually an hour long. My voice was starting to go there. And then last night we recorded our Jurassic Park episode, which will release in several weeks.
Yep, you'll hear that soon.
And my voice was rough again.
Yeah.
Hopefully my allergies will give me some relief here shortly.
'Tis the season, Nelson. It's okay.
Yeah, it feels like it's always the season.
You have a sexy voice though now.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, you have that like Phoebe Boucher voice.
Yeah.
Phoebe Buffet. Boucher, Tommy Boucher. Where am I getting Boucher from? Boucher, isn't it Boucher from Waterboy?
Bobby Boucher.
Bobby Boucher, yeah, okay. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, I was mixing up those two names. But yeah, when she gets the cold and then her singing automatically gets better because she's got like a sexy, raspy voice now.
Yeah.
Shout out to Friends, R.I.P.
Smell a cat,
Matthew
smell
Perry.
a cat.
Anyways, moving on. Is there anything we need to talk about before we get into the movie? It's just you and me today.
Yeah, we've got some feedback on a past episode.
Okay, we'll skip that. Is there anything else we need to talk about before we get into a movie?
No.
All right, let's do the feedback then.
All right, so this comes from listener Jen, and I believe most of this feedback is targeted at me.
This listener may be a guest in a future episode.
Yeah. This listener may have also told me a lot of this feedback while she was in the kitchen listening to the show. So this comes from my wife, Jen, and this is about the episode we did with Sarah on Coco.
Oh, this is fresh. Okay.
Yeah, so she said, I love this movie and I have some things to correct and add to. First, Mexican Independence Day is September 16th, not November 15th. Although I personally will not hold Nelson too hard to this since I still don't think he knows my birthday.
Ouch.
Dia de los Muertos is a Mexican celebration only. In other parts of Latin America, it is called Dia de Todos los Santos, in English, All Saints Day.
Oh, okay.
I would like to push back on the idea that someone who doesn't have a Latin name doesn't have a vested interest in Latin American culture. I think that was directed at me. The reason Hector doesn't immediately confess that he is the owner of the guitar and that he is in fact his ancestor is that he doesn't remember how he died until right before they're thrown into the pit. In his mind, he is just as guilty of the thing the family won't forgive him for as they think he is. In Latin American cultures, it is expected that the behavior of someone in the family is a reflection of the whole family. So his behavior of never having returned to his home is a reflection of his whole family. So Mama Imelda completely separating herself from anything that represents him and his interests is how she saved the reputation of her family. And he supports that because he recognizes that his behavior was abhorrent and should be separated to save their family reputation. He feels shame to be recognized as his ancestor. I don't know if I agree with that entirely, Jen. Any thoughts, Jeff?
No, I don't want to get between you two. Jen, thank you for the comments.
Latin American.
I was going to say there's more, right? Yep.
Yeah. My Latin wife has a lot to say. Latin American cultures are higher contrast cultures than American culture, meaning that there is a hierarchy in place in the culture in which older people are respected more. So the idea of remembering your ancestors is less about venerating or worship, but more of honoring that their sacrifice work is what brought us here. One way you can tell this kind of high contrast in Latin America is how names are legally recorded. Everyone has two last names, first fathers and then mothers, and one way people may express their heritage is by enumerating the many family names represented in their ancestry. That's why Latins have that trope of having like 15 names. It's people demonstrating where they come from. Sharing all 5 or 6 of my last names to anyone in USA might not mean a lot, but in Guatemala, where people don't usually move very far from home, knowing where I come from means something and can open lots of doors that otherwise would stay closed. It might also close doors that otherwise would have been opened.
Interesting.
Nelson, you are killing me with Ismelda. It's Emelda, no S. Noted. Being able to deviate from the
But
family...
what was Melda?
was Melda.
Was Melda, yeah. Past
Will
tense.
be's
Will
Melda.
be Melda. Sorry, Jen.
Yeah. Might have been Melda. Being able to deviate from the family business is a sign of prosperity. It's not that they are pushing the family business on him, but in the family business, they can ensure that he will have a job and that the job will be one that will sustain and provide for him and his future family. It's not a power trip. It's making sure they know that he will always be taken care of. It is a trait of an individualistic culture that everyone has to create their own success. In a collectivist culture, we all thrive together, and they are just bringing him into the fold of their collective success. I want to clarify that even though you have not had conversations with your kids about rebellion with these movies with your children, I have had those with mine. I don't know who that's directed at because we share children.
You and your wife, not you and I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
We don't co-parent, Jeff and I.
Yeah. Not anymore.
I want to clarify that even though you have not had conversations with your kids about rebellion with these movies with your children, I have had those with mine.
Unless, does she have a sense of humor? Like, is she saying that as it, like, it's supposed to sound the way it is? Like,
it might be.
She's
loves,
like,
she loves.
You haven't talked to your children about it, but I've talked to mine about it.
Yeah, she likes to tease me like that. One time I was giving her a hard time about something at my parents' house, and she said, "Careful, Nelson, I made all 4 of your meals today."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Bravo, Jen.
Yeah. No,
Bravo.
she's a real alley cat. Nelson never said this, but I know for a fact that he has cried multiple times at this movie. Huh. I don't remember that. I trust her. La Llorona is the legend of a woman who was unfaithful to her husband while he was away and became pregnant. She had her baby and found out her husband was coming, and she knew that he would know she was unfaithful, so she drowned her baby in a river. Immediately regretted it, and now wanders around crying, trying to find her drowned baby. The legend says that if you hear her really close by, it means she's far away. And if she sounds far away, she's actually very close.
Okay.
My Latin take on Americans is that they have a really hard time enjoying anything that they don't understand. It's not so with most other nationalities and languages. I think that's probably true of like the majority of Americans. And honestly, it's Americans are very fortunate that their culture is exported far more than other cultures are imported. But that is changing with anime, with like Squid Games, for example.
Which is now a reality TV show.
And yeah, I mean, like The Office was an import, right? So it is changing that Americans are more and more open to imported culture. But I think it is generally true that, you know, like I know Americans that won't watch British TV just because they don't like having to hear an accent. So
that's fair.
No, it's not. It's not fair.
Oh, it's not fair.
It's silly.
But it's fair that it's not fair. Like it's
yeah. I mean, my kids, I put on shows with people have accents, and they figure it out.
Okay.
Expose yourself to other cultures.
Expose your cracks, and love will fill them.
Go to other cultures and expose yourself.
I've done that. It's called a mission trip.
That's why I'm not allowed at SeaWorld.
Oof. Was that it?
That was it. That was.
Right. Well, thank you, Jen.
That was the criticisms from my wife, mostly at me. And you know what? I was overdue for some criticism. Jeff, I think you've unfairly suffered the majority of the criticisms.
I wouldn't say it's unfair. I would say I just brought upon myself.
What I mean is, I also deserve my fair share of criticism, and I don't.
You just edit them out. When I start editing,
you're suddenly suddenly I'm the idiot.
Jeff sounds smart this episode. What's going on?
Nelson can barely string a sentence together.
I'm just gonna cut and paste your sentences and mix them all up. Yeah, thanks, Jen. Appreciate the feedback.
Yeah,
she's listened to every episode.
I actually don't know if that's true.
Oh,
but it could be.
I was being hopeful.
We also have feedback on Fargo.
You don't say.
Our Fargo episode. 2 pieces of feedback. One from an anonymous source, not me.
Why did you wink when you said that?
It was my wife again.
Oh.
She said that she thinks that maybe unknowingly you were in a bad mood when you sat down to watch, and that it affected how you received the movie. She was also very surprised that you didn't like it. I think you should give it another shot in the future.
I will definitely watch it again. I don't remember being in a bad mood. I remember being excited that Lindsay was actually watching it with me because she hasn't watched much movies with me. So I remember being excited to watch it because she was sitting next to me. No, I don't think I was in a bad mood. None of it hit me. Like none of it. Yeah, none of it landed with me. That's what I wanted to use. That's the word I want to use.
Okay.
I didn't. Yeah. I don't. Yeah. There's a whole episode about it.
We also have feedback on that same episode from Bird, BERD, who says, Ace Ventura is not a comedy, it's a drama. I think they're mocking you.
Oh. They're mocking me, aren't they? Lay it on real thick. Well, anyways.
Let's get on with the show.
Yes. Speaking of comedies.
The Seventh Seal.
The Seventh Seal. Not the sixth, not the eighth.
No.
The Seventh Seal. 1957.
That's right.
Hour and 36 minutes. Ingmar Bergman.
Yeah.
And it's not rated.
Not rated. Do you rate it?
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this movie.
Okay.
I would, I also do not have a rating for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I gave it a star, but as far as like a parental
you gave
guidance.
it 3.5 stars. So either you loved it or hated it.
Yeah. They'll adjust it later. But this movie came out in 1957.
Yeah.
The same year as another movie we've done, which Stanley Kubrick movie.
Yeah.
Paths of Glory.
Yeah. Two very accomplished directors, Ingmar Bergman, Stanley Kubrick. Interestingly, this is not the last Bergman film we're going to see. There's two more in the top 250.
I didn't recognize any of the other films. I guess I didn't. I just glossed over them. What other films will we be doing from him?
This movie, The Seventh Seal, came out in 1957.
Yes.
That same year, Wild Strawberries came out, also Ingmar Bergman.
And that's in the top 250?
That's in the top 250. 1966, his movie Persona in the top 250. Then he's got three that have been Autumn Sonata, Scenes from a Marriage, and Fanny and Alexander.
Fanny. Wait, that's a TV miniseries.
Fanny and Alexander, I believe, is a movie.
It says TV miniseries. Oh, wait, there's a movie and a TV miniseries.
Now, here's something particularly interesting about Wild Strawberries.
Why did they do that? Yeah, they're not fresh until after you pick them.
Wild Strawberries is a line in this movie, and the movie Wild Strawberries shares 18 cast and crew with The Seventh Seal. So it seems like he made these movies like back to back and just got all the same people again. It's like, hey, I enjoy working with you. You want to do this? And I think that kind of speaks to the style of movie that this is, and we'll get into that a little bit later.
The Wild Strawberries. I'll have to. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, okay, cool. Well, that's good to know because I didn't recognize any cast members. Obviously, like with it was made in Germany, right? It was a Swedish director, but this was a German film because they're speaking German, right?
No, it was made in Sweden. I think they speak German in parts of Sweden.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure it was made in Sweden.
Okay. Yeah. Well, right on. So
let me double check. I was looking it up earlier.
A knight returning to Sweden after the Crusades. So it's
all scenes except two were shot in or around the Filmstaden studios in Solna, Sweden. The exceptions were the famous opening scene with Death and the knight playing chess by the sea, and the ending with the Dance of Death, which were both shot at Hovs Haller, a rocky, precipitous beach in northwestern Scania.
But were they speaking Sweden or German then? Or can I just not tell the difference?
I don't know if they can tell the difference.
Fascinating. I mean, to clarify for the listeners, we watched the dubbed version, not the subbed version.
Yeah, I watched it dubbed and subbed.
Oh,
because I'm
elitist. Well, there you go. I'm eager to watch more of his then, because I feel like I don't know. I still don't know what I think about this film. Hopefully, I'll come to.
This is considered to be like his magnum opus.
Oh, so it gets worse from here.
I don't know, maybe, but. Let's see. This one is 74, and then the other two that are on the top 50 are ranked 87 and 174 today. So yeah, this is like comparatively better received than the other two that we'll eventually get to of his.
Okay. Do you know if this movie was based off a book? Any sort of writing or literature?
It's based off of a play called Wood Painting, written by Ingmar Bergman.
Do you think he's related to the director of this film?
Yeah, I think it's the same guy.
All right, play.
And the play he wrote it like the year before.
Okay, right on. Let's see, moving on here. I didn't know the director was coming back for us, but I also didn't recognize any of the cast members. Was there any cast members that you know that we'll be seeing again besides the strawberries one? Like, is there anyone else that stood out to you in this movie that you've crossed paths with before or was notable?
You actually have seen at least one person here before.
It was the baby, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't the naked baby. Antonius Block, the Knight, played by Max von Sydow.
Okay.
We will see him again in Wild Strawberries. He was in The Exorcist. He was Father Lancaster Marin. He was also in Robin Hood, the Russell Crowe version. He played Sir Walter Loxley. He was in Conan the Barbarian as King Osric.
Is that the one with Schwarzenegger?
Yes.
Conan, yeah.
Yeah. And he was in his first ever English-speaking role was playing Jesus in The Greatest Story Ever Told. He's also in, among others, Shutter Island, Minority Report, Never Say Never Again, Judge Dredd, Flash Gordon, Solomon Kane. He is a credentialed actor.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Star Wars, Game of Thrones, The Seventh Seal.
And then John, the Squire, Johns, was played by Gunnar Bjorstrand.
It's a great name.
We will see him again in Persona and Wild Strawberries. He wasn't in anything else that I recognized.
Oh, that's cool.
The Jester, Joff, was played by Nils Pop, or Popey, I don't know, Poppe. Based on his other acting credits, he seems to have had a pretty substantial career in Swedish cinema as a clown comic character, similar to, what's his name? It's killing me that I can't remember his name. Charlie Chaplin.
Oh, okay.
So he seems very much to have been the Swedish Charlie Chaplin. Bib Anderson played Maya, the Jester's wife. She'll also be back in Persona and Wild Strawberries.
Okay. Well, there you go. Schooling me, Nelson. On the IMDb, this movie is 8.1 out of 10. It's currently, as of recording, number 207 on the top 250. And do you have the history stats?
It's currently 207 on the top 250? Oh, that's correct. I said 74 earlier, but that is not its current rank. That is its highest rank. It debuted at 76. So in 1996, It was at 76. It floated around 100, dropped from 88 to 140 in spring of 2005. It peaked at 74 in 2007. So it dropped down to 140 in 05, rallied back up to 74. It's fallen slowly since then. It fell slowly to 162 by February of 2022. And then it had a sudden drop to around the 200 mark in March.
Rotten Tomatoes, 93% tomato meter, 93% audience. And a couple more things here. Do you have the budget for this film?
Certainly do. It was made for $150,000 US in 1957.
What's that equal to today?
It's a little hard to say because either there's two ways that we could do the math, and neither of them are going to be entirely accurate. One would be to find out what it cost in Swedish money at the time, move that to today, and then convert that to US dollars. Or the other option is convert it at the time to US dollars and see what that would be today. I did the latter. That would be $1.6 million.
Holy cow. That's cheap.
Yeah. Well, it is also like an art house film, filmed entirely on set.
Last but not least, the Peanut Gallery. Do you have any thoughts from the Patreon subscribers?
Yeah, no comments on this. However, it does have a 100% would be in my top 250.
Wow.
From those that have responded.
Right. Okay. Did you like this film, Nelson? Let's just get into you over. This was the first time viewing it?
This was my first time viewing it.
Same here.
I really wanted to like it. I think that viewed in its proper context and contextualized, I think that it has some interesting strengths to it. But overall, I would say no, I did not like this film, and I wouldn't come back to it. I think the proper kind of way to understand this film and to look at it is similar to Hamilton, actually, in that it is a play put to screen.
Right.
And not just any kind of play, a specific genre of play. It is a Shakespeare kind of play, where you had these very high trope type characters playing very specific roles, sometimes addressing the audience directly, being poetic and pontificating. And
there was a lot of that, like literally like black versus white, like very like the villains versus the good guys. It was very clear, like you were watching this battle of good and evil in moments like it. I'm not super familiar with Shakespeare, but like the ones I'm familiar with, I kind of get that idea of like there's a lot of that, like just very 1v1 type of, or maybe I'm wrong. Like I got some of that, like once the character was introduced, I was kind of like, okay, I can tell, moral aim or amoral or
in this genre of play, and I'm no expert by any means. I'm leaning on what I remember of reading Shakespeare in high school. I read a little bit on my own, but not a whole lot. But basically, all of the characters have to be so dialed into a trope so that the audience can immediately pick up, oh, that's who this is. And nothing about them is supposed to feel like real people. And when you realize that they're not supposed to feel like real people, it allows you to kind of digest it a little bit easier. These are very overacted characters, overwritten as well, not intended to be believable. You have a knight, a squire, a jester, a blacksmith, a harlot, a death, and they are all very much kind of heightened tropes of themselves.
Yeah.
Also very much like Shakespeare. Playwrights love to have actors within their, like the play within the play, the actor in the production. So in this, we had several different actors who are playing actors.
Mm.
That's a pretty big trope of that era and genre of play as well. It's not a genre that I particularly like. I like it when it's done really well. I like reading Shakespeare. I haven't in quite some time, but I do enjoy reading Shakespeare. I feel like this is bad Shakespeare. I'd rather read or watch a performance of Midsummer's Night Dream than this.
That's fair. Yeah, I struggled to stay invested with this movie. It's short. It's an hour and a half, but like in general,
It's a long hour and a half, though.
It was like there were some moments that piqued my interest, not because of the moment itself, but just like drama. But like the moment when the one guy ran away with the lady, and then the blacksmith came over, like that whole story. I was like, ooh, like okay, it's getting a little steamy, like this. But then I was like, okay, I'm bored with this again. Like, I wanted more death. Like, I wanted that to be like. Granted, obviously, the whole movie's danced around this idea of like the dance with death. This is it your time? Is it not your time? Will we know when it's like this whole movie dances with themes like that. Like, I wanted more of just that. I wanted to see literal battle between someone fighting with death. And it was at the beginning, the chess game started, and then you get these old storylines in the middle, and then death comes back later. I'm like, why couldn't you just stay in the whole movie? Like, I wanted to see more actual playing that out.
Yeah.
And yeah, once that character left for a while, I'm just like, oh, okay, so we're going on to something else.
And I read the synopses of...
Synopsi.
Oh,
yeah.
Synopsi. Like the plural of octopuses.
Yeah, Nope, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I read the synopses of Wild Strawberries and Persona. I think it's going to feel very similar.
Okay.
I think Ingmar Bergman, for as heralded as he is, it seems very much like he was a playwright. He wrote a specific genre of plays, and at one point picked up a camera. And that's just not for me. And I understand that some people really love it. Yeah. Right? More power to them. Not for me.
Yeah. The one scene that was also caught my attention again. Like I didn't necessarily drift off. Like I wasn't distracted, but I just remember going like, wait, what's happening? Like wait, what is this? The moment when the thespian characters are on stage, they're dancing and stuff, and then they're playing the music, and all of a sudden they stop, and you can tell they're looking at something, and then the camera view changes, and you see what they're looking at, and it's this parade, this death parade, essentially. You may even know exactly what it was, but like there was just like you saw a girl hanging on a crucifix, and you saw them carrying what looked like the Ark of the Covenant. It wasn't the Ark of the Covenant, but some sort of like they were carrying some sort of container.
Yes,
and then there was that was creepy. That was kind of eerie, and then I got my interest back in. Ooh, what's this? Like this is dark. This is more of those dark elements I was expecting, and then it went on to something else again. Then it went like just like. Those were the moments where I'm like, okay, this was what I wanted more of that.
Yeah. So what that is called the flagellant movement. Flagellant coming from flagging. Okay. So during the 14th century, during the Black Plague, or Black Plague, I don't know how to properly pronounce that word.
Plague.
During the Black Plague, there was a movement in parts of Europe, but not in Sweden, called the flagellant movement, where they believed that the reason that they were experiencing this widespread disease was God's punishment, and that through self-flagellation and self-punishment, they could redeem society,
Cleanse them.
and cleanse themselves and cleanse society. So that's what we're seeing there. This movie is known for its anachronisms. Anachronism is things that are not where they ought to be in history.
Oh.
So like, for example...
Things out of time.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. So the flagellant movement, which was entirely foreign to Sweden, witch persecutions, which wouldn't be for another couple hundred years.
But this movie did take place during the 14th century.
Yes.
Because it was during, so it wasn't out of time, it was just out of region, right? Okay.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure I'm tracking.
The flagellant movement was out of region.
Okay.
The witch persecutions wouldn't be for another 100 years.
Right.
The main period of the Crusades is well before this.
Oh.
And it wasn't during the Dark Ages. The Dark Ages are so named because of the air and aura of depression that everybody was experiencing and having this frustration with. So none of the movie is the story is fantasy.
Yeah.
And you have to accept it on
Right.
its own terms there. It doesn't bill itself as being some historical, like these criticisms of anachronisms of Braveheart, I think hold a little more water. This movie's not intending to be historically accurate.
So the seventh seal, obviously the name comes from a passage of scripture.
That's right.
And that was also another thing I was expecting to be a bigger theme. And the scripture was right at the beginning, and then it was said at the end. And there was minimal theology throughout the rest.
That's right.
So I was looking for this to be a theology heavy topic, a theology heavy movie, or at least a Bible heavy movie. And like outside of this death and this idea of like, can you fight? Can you defeat death? Or like, and there is this symbology of the husband, the wife, and the child. The actor and actress, and they have the little baby. One of the things I was reading was like it's not explicit, but those could be implied to be representing Mary, Joseph, and Jesus.
Okay.
Like at least in this article, or it was a YouTube video I was watching. They were saying like how like there was some biblical symbology there, like that they lived, and in this idea of like the child will
and that's interesting
on,
because Mary and Jesus are in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. So just again, that was just from the critique of the YouTube video. But like this wasn't about the end times.
No.
Which Revelation is about the second coming of Christ, and this was
one thing was, because part of the seventh seal being opened is that there's going to be a half hour of silence. And this I believe there was the night talked about there being an eerie hour or so of silence. I think that I don't know. I think Bergman had some ideas that he just like, I don't know. A lot of this just feels like he kind of put it to paper over the course of a weekend and never did a second draft. That's how I feel about a lot of this.
It's a rough draft of a movie.
Of a play.
Of a play.
A
movie of a play.
Yeah. A play of a movie.
It's a rough draft movie of a rough draft of a play.
And I've never written a play. I have no idea how difficult that is. I've never written a movie either.
You could read some of mine.
So, but I've read enough plays. I know what a good play looks like. And I don't know, I wasn't terribly impressed.
Yeah.
But there was enough, there's a bit of meat on this bone still.
Yeah, there's some things to talk about, and I've danced around a couple of the ones that I'm going to bring back here. But what's one of the first things that stood out to you?
Well, immediately before I talk about that, I do want to say the character of the squire, played by Gunnar Bjorstrand, Johns the squire, he is your cynic in this movie, right? And he has a lot of things to say, but like nothing that he says is really like, there's not a lot of meat there. It's just kind of like a nihilistic cynicism. He doesn't have a whole lot to say. But starting with, this is from Joff the jester to his wife Mia. He had just seen Mary and Jesus walking. He tells Mia about this, and she's saying, yeah, you see all kinds of stuff. And she says, remember that time that you told us that you saw Satan painting the wheels of the cart red? And he's like, okay, I invented that one, but it's only so that you believe my other visions, the real ones, the ones I didn't invent. And this stuck out to me. I was recently listening to the Bob Murphy podcast, specific episode linked below, and they're talking about a link from a moment in a poker movie. And the character says something about how sometimes you choose to lose a hand that would be a winning hand. You fold early so that later you can win a hand with a hand that shouldn't win. And they go into like he's a professional poker player and is the guest. And they really dive into how that doesn't make any sense. That's not the way poker works. And I think really, Joff here, like that, the claim doesn't hold any water. Why would you lie so that your truths are more credible?
Mm-hmm.
If your truths are credible, they'll be credible on their own. You don't have to lie.
They're staying on their own, yeah. You don't have to do anything to make truth be more truthful.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, you know, I'm a bit of a storyteller, and so there have been times where I have embellished the details of a true story to make it a more interesting story. And I expect that whoever I'm speaking to or whoever my audience is, they're going to take this whole story with a grain of salt anyway. And if they don't believe the story, that's fine, because that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is to entertain you.
Yeah.
If the point of your story is to be believed, then you need to be honest.
No, yeah, it's. Well, did you have any? What's the first big nugget of thing?
That was.
Oh, that you're gonna need to go bigger than that, Nels.
Okay, here's my next one.
What you got?
Everywhere you turn, your rump is behind you. Reminds me of a Ben Folds song where he says, "Everywhere I go, damn, there I am."
Have you ever seen Good Burger?
Yeah. Welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. Can I take your order?
One of the bad guys looks to Kel Mitchell's character and goes, "You better watch your butt, man."
Yeah.
And so for the next 2 minutes, while Keenan's character is interacting with the bad guy, Kel's spinning around his butt, and he goes, "It is impossible for a man to watch his own butt."
Yeah. It's a great movie.
It's a fantastic. The sequel comes out this month.
This month?
This month, November 22nd, on Paramount Plus.
All right.
So that movie was part of my child.
It always bummed me out. Now, don't hear what I'm not saying. I think Kenan Thompson's great.
Yeah.
It always bummed me out that he had the career that I think Kel should have had.
Yes. Kel went on to do Mystery Men.
That's true. He is great at Mystery Men.
And
I love him in Mystery Men.
And then and
he became a minister, didn't he?
He is a youth pastor in Chicago.
Yeah.
He also is in the CHH, the Christian hip hop circuit. So he has a couple hip hop songs out.
And they're still friends or friendly.
Yeah. They still, and all that was recently rebooted on Nickelodeon a couple years ago, pre-COVID, with a younger cast, but the older cast members would come back and make cameos through the whole series. Nick Cannon had a improv show, or Wild and Out. The cast of all that was on that. Keenan and Kel were on there with some of the other cast.
I wonder what it is about the kids that came up right after us that there wasn't an audience for sketch comedy. I remember in Canada on Global, every Saturday morning, there was a sketch comedy show that I would watch that was targeted at kids. I loved it.
Was it solid?
It was solid.
I don't know. I don't want to say we evolved, but generations have different interests.
Sure.
And so
kids, when it comes to content, kids will eat whatever you put in front of them.
That's right. You and I aren't too far apart age-wise, so we consumed about the same years of media and stuff. Disney, I would say that was Disney's golden age as well too. You got the Lizzie McGuire show. You've got Even Stevens. You've got there's other that was there was great Disney going on at that time. There was the great Disney original channel movies. The 90s and the early 2000s was solid.
Yeah.
With content on Nickelodeon and Disney. I mean, that was the era of SpongeBob. That was SpongeBob's golden age.
Yep.
Yeah, we were blessed to have that good content. Now, let me ask you this. So this is a little philosophy.
Okay.
Philosophy. Is it that we're getting old and we can't comprehend the new media that's out for the little kids? Because you and I can remember as a kid, our parents going, well, they just don't make stuff like they used to.
Yeah.
It's and now that's exactly what you and I are saying now. So is it just the fact that we're getting old, or can we unbiasedly look at the new children or young adult, young youthful age content and go, no, this is trash, or this is less good? Because I'm also older.
I will put on for my kids things that I watched as a kid, and sometimes they love it. Sometimes
it doesn't hit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been trying to get them to watch Thundercats.
Okay, I'm not familiar.
It's just not really hitting.
Okay.
But I showed them the original Ninja Turtles cartoon show.
Yeah.
They ate it up. So, it's really hard to say.
And
then also I watch the stuff that's being made for them these days, and it's good. It's not all good. A lot of it's garbage, but a lot of the stuff that they made for us was garbage too.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of the stuff hasn't aged well either. I've gone back and watched some stuff. Now, the Keenan and Kel show still that's on It was on Netflix for a little bit. I don't know if it's still on there, but that stuff still is funny. Like I still laugh at that as an adult. Good Burger, I still like. So yeah, I think there was stronger writing, but again, I'm not a youth, and I'm not their market.
Yeah.
But,
Also, long form storytelling for kids shows is becoming more common as well.
Yeah, yeah. Versus just each episode can stand on its own. And
yeah.
Now, were you a Boy Meets World fan? No, you didn't like Boy Meets World was also a show that was that was my childhood. I loved growing up with Cory and Topanga, and then when Disney brought back Girl Meets World, it was rough. It was nostalgic for nostalgic's sake. They had a lot of fan service, but the storylines were weak. And it was just, I can't invest in this. Like, this isn't believable anymore.
Yeah.
Or at least it's not as believable as the original show was.
Yeah. I'm trying to find the name of that show.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm looking at a list of kids sketch comedy.
Yeah.
And something that I hadn't never considered before is that Animaniacs, Tiny Toons, that's considered sketch comedy. And when you think about it, kind of is. But also, Weird Al Yankovic had a sketch comedy show.
Catered for kids?
Yeah, called The Weird Al Show.
Really?
Yeah.
I never got into him as an adult, so I was off his... Did you find your show yet?
Not yet, no.
Well, yeah, hopefully you find it and we can link it below if we do. Did you consume a lot of television and movies and stuff as a kid, or like...
Probably more than it's healthy, yeah.
I also was... There were seasons where summers just watched... I wasn't a gamer.
Yeah.
So it was very little game playing. It was more just sitting and consuming shows and stuff. More than I probably should have. Anywho, the Seventh Seal. Have we read that verse yet of the Seventh Seal? I know you acknowledged it, but let me read that here. Okay, so Revelation 8:1. When he opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half hour. I don't know what version that is. It's on a site I'm looking at that's breaking down the seven seals. It doesn't give a translation, but yeah. So this movie had moments that felt like a silent. Like I feel like you could have done this storyline in a silent film scenario as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like being that a lot of this it felt like you were watching this played out on a theater stage, which I think that's redundant. This could have been a silent film, which that would have even been more impactful. I think it's called the Seventh Seal, and it would have been a silent film. That would have been cool.
Yeah.
Come on, Ingmar.
30 minutes of it anyway.
Yeah.
Silent film.
30 minutes.
A silent play.
So can I get a little off topic, but it's just the idea of end times?
Yeah.
Can we use this as an invitation to talk about?
Of course.
Okay. I'm not super versed when it comes to this study of the Bible.
Yeah.
The end times. I forget the theological word for the study of the end. I forget there's a specific word for it.
Scatological.
I don't think that. But do you have people that grew up in church, I always have are you pre-trib, post-trib, trib? What's your thoughts about the end time? Like what do you think we'll see Jesus come back in our day, or let's just talk about the end times? Not a specific question, but just concerning that topic of there's a lot going on in our world right now.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, there was a lot going on in the world in biblical times too. So I'm not trying to say, right. Media definitely ups the ante to things that have always and will always be unfortunately unraveling throughout time. So I'm not saying that we're worse off than they were back in biblical times.
Yeah.
But do you what I don't know, what's your thoughts? It's always interesting to see people do you think Jesus will come? Yeah. Let you answer.
To answer first your question about will Jesus come back in our lifetime, for reasons that have no logical explanation and no sourcing or citing, I have full confidence that I will die of old age. And I hope that my children also have the opportunity to die of old age, because what I see described in the scripture as, Jesus' return and what's going to happen around that, it's not a thing I want to really live through. It's going to be pretty horrific.
Depending on where you think that, if you believe in a rapture.
There's nothing in scripture that I see that supports the idea of rapture. Also on that note, there's a very popular school of thought with apocalyptic literature that what's called dispensationalism. And it's the idea that God has interacted differently with the world through different eras of history across 7 different dispensations. Most evangelical Christian Americans are dispensationalists of some sort. And that is one of the big reasons why there's so much evangelical support for the state of Israel even if they might find the actions of Israel to be somewhat abhorrent, because they believe that Israel, the nation, the state, is also the same Israel of the Bible and the same Israel of God's chosen people. That is a relatively new concept within Christianity within the last 200 years. For 2,000 years, that's not been what is considered Orthodox Christianity. So I don't take a dispensationalist view. I think that Scripture is pretty clear that God's chosen people now expand beyond just the biological descendants of Abraham. Interesting fact, most Israelis today are not likely biologically descendants of Abraham. We can't know that for a fact because in Israel it is illegal to take a genetic test to see where you descend from. But there's a lot of reason to believe, based on migration patterns through the antiquities, that it's unlikely that the modern Israelis are descendants of Abraham. But luckily for us, that's not what the Bible holds out as God's chosen people. Who you are born of is largely irrelevant. It is, do you accept Christ as your Messiah? That is what makes you a child of Israel, basically. Right. So some dispensationalists would call that replacement theology, saying that we have replaced Israel. I don't think that that's accurate to what Scripture holds out as well. We, as Gentiles, have been grafted in, and now Israel is those that accept Christ. The earliest Christians were Jewish. Many people that consider themselves Jewish today do not consider themselves Christians. And because of the destruction of the Second Temple, and with that, all of their sacrifice rituals, Orthodox Judaism has not been practiced for close to 2,000 years. So when it comes to end times theology, what I see happening in the Middle East, I don't think that what we're seeing in the Middle East has much to do with when Christ chooses to return. The early founding of the state of Israel, from the dispensationalist view, was that it had to be supported, because in so doing it would provoke Arabs to violence, and that will force Jesus to return. I don't think we can force Jesus to return. There's also non-Zionist Jews. Some people will tell you, if you're a Jew, you're a Zionist. It's not true. Not all Jews are Zionists. Many Jews look at the attempt to forcibly create a nation of Israel as a idolatrous act that doesn't allow God to do what God is going to do. And interestingly, and not often talked about, if you are a Palestinian, it does not mean you're Arab, and it does not mean you're a Muslim. There are plenty of Christian Palestinians. There are also, and they're a minority, but they exist, Jewish Palestinians. And there are non-Arab Palestinians as well.
I don't have an answer. It wasn't a baited question because I wasn't trying to trap you.
No, I know, but it's a conversation that no matter what you say, you're going to get branded as some kind of bigot, which doesn't really, I don't care. People can call me bigot if they want to.
Well, I don't know if I've ever had those conversations go into that, but just in this idea of
no, not that you would, but there are people that will listen to this and say, "Oh, Nelson hates Jews. Oh, Nelson hates Muslims." Neither of those things are true. Yeah, no. For me, I was just focusing on the just the idea of the end time. Where do you focus on when and who's not who when he is coming back? Who's coming back? Yeah, it's hard to say.
Who? Yeah. Well, what's on first? Yeah, my other question I was going to ask you, just because it's kind of on topic of what this movie danced around, is if you knew when your death was coming, or if you had the choice to know when you were going to die, would you, this is another philosophical question, would you choose to receive that information, or would you let it be a mystery? If you had the ability to see without inaccuracies, this was guaranteed that this was an accurate, obviously this is fiction, but it's one of those would you let
how and when?
At least when. I don't know if how's as relevant as when. It'd be nerve-wracking either way, whether it was in your sleep or whether it was by a anvil falling from a roadrunner.
I mean, but so for example, if I knew that I'm going to die by being hit by a bus in the year whatever on this day at this time, I would make sure that on that day at that time I would be in a place where a bus couldn't hit me.
Mm-hmm. So parking garage.
Good luck, bus.
You'll never find me here.
Come and get me. I'm in a basement. So yeah, I get that. But to answer your question, no.
You'd want to keep it a mystery?
Yep.
I think I would too.
A question relevant to this movie specifically. If by possibility you knew that playing chess with death could mean that you not die, would you go and learn chess?
Yes, I'd have to go learn it first because I am terrible at chess. I would go get our buddy Andrew,
Yeah.
who loves playing chess. He'd have to go get him to teach me how to play. But I don't know how to play chess. But if there was a chance that knowing that game, yes. Now, here is where I'll put some money down. If any of our listeners are interested in seeking me out, I would be confident enough with my euchre skill to put that on the line.
Trying to think, what game would I play?
Euchre would be my game where I'm like, okay, if there was one game that I'm confident enough to go, yeah, I can win this game, it'd be euchre, which I know there's a lot of chance in euchre.
I have a pretty good track record with Dominion.
It's a fun game.
So that's going to be my game to cheat death with.
Yeah, if you would ask me before having a kid what I want to know, when and where am I going to meet the end of my life here on Earth, I'd be like, nah. But part of me goes like, I have a family now. Like I have a child now. Like I'd like to know. Like a part of me would definitely be curious, and I don't know if it would tip the scale for me to go, yeah, tell me that information. But I don't know. It's a weighted power, you know, like you can use it or abuse it just like anything. Like I think, you know, it's one of those things like it's that idea of like you should live like Jesus could return any day now. You know, like, and so you never want to catch yourself in a predictable or a compromising moment because Jesus could show up right there. Like living with that mentality, there's an aspect of it that makes sense to me. Like, yeah, like, you know, I've always heard like, would you say it in front of your grandma? Like, you know, just ways to like check your morals or ethics. Like, would you do this in front of someone? Would you do this if you knew Jesus was going to show up? Like, there's a weight to that. Like, if that was heavy on my mind more than it is, if that was heavy on my mind, I feel like I would act a little different, knowing that like today's the day. I'm pretty sure Jesus. Like, I want to make sure I'm on my best. Like, I feel like I would probably be putting more of my best feet forward. I have more than one best feet, but I don't know. I think inevitably I would end up still failing because I'm, you know, human nature and stuff. Like, I don't think it would be as beneficial as I think logically in my mind that I think it would, if any of that makes sense.
Yeah. And then specifically, he throws the game to save an infant and its parents. Do you think that, you know, you got a winning hand in euchre? You know that you could win this game. Would you throw it
to save someone else? Yeah. No, Grant, it's easier said right here behind a mic.
Yeah.
But you know, we live in a world with a lot of shootings, a lot of violence, a lot of hate. You know, and I've thought about this before. You know, like my wife works in a school, and I'm actually currently in school district. So like, I've put thought into the fact that, like, you know, if someone puts a gun to my head or something and says like, you know, like blah 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 blah, do you will you won't, like I hope I have the courage to take a bullet for someone. Like, I've never been in those situations. I don't know if I'll become a coward. Like, I hope that I won't cower, but like I can't say for sure. I've never been in a situation like that, as stressful as those moments are, for me to know, yeah, I can stand up to that. I don't have much of a backbone, but in my mind, I hope if that were ever to happen, which I pray it doesn't, I hope I have enough backbone to be like, yeah, I'll stand up for someone physically, like in a physical manner. But I'm not a real courageous person, but I would like to, and I hope I would be if that situation. Yeah. I thought about this when we were watching Saving Private Ryan.
Oh yeah.
Just that idea of like, and I think that's the part of the military that scares me, is just that idea of like, I would freeze. Like, and they depicted that. They depicted soldiers just freezing. Like, I've never been anywhere close to experiencing something like that. But like I'm not, I related more to them than I would be the person to be like, charge, you know, like front line, like just like, it's like, I don't know. Like, it just,
and also with this,
I hope I would be able to.
We already know that this is a knight. Cave. So we already know that he's
seen warfare. Yeah.
But in this situation, he's not fighting. He's choosing to lose a game that will result in his death.
But it will result in the life.
Yeah. It's a little bit different than would you have the courage to stand up and fight? Because the courage to stand up and fight is different than the courage to lay down your life.
You're right. It's a different type of intensity. Yeah. I would throw a game. If it meant my life for 3 others, yeah, absolutely.
What about 2
What
others?
about you?
Oh, would I give my life? No. No, it depends. Context is everything.
But if it was Hitler, Thanos, and Ultron, those are the three people you had the chance to save.
3 fictional people?
Yeah, would you throw it? No, Hitler was not fictional.
Oh yeah? Did you ever meet him?
You know what? I didn't. Shoot.
New conspiracy theory just dropped.
Was Hitler real?
Was Hitler real? Next week on Social Glasses.
It was all
just a bad dream.
yeah.
It context is everything. Who are the 3 people?
Right.
You know, so as much as I don't want 3 strangers to die, I also don't want to leave my kids without a father.
That's fair.
And also these 3 people, basically strangers to him.
Yeah.
You know, scripture says, there's no greater love than a man that'll lay down his life for his friends. How much more that somebody that'll lay down his life for some strangers. Another quote in this movie, and there's not much in this movie that's like truth claims of any kind. I have a tedious companion. Your squire? No, myself. As somebody that goes through seasons of depression, as much as that's a joke, it also kind of like hits, you know? It's like, yeah, there's times where like, you know, it goes back to that everywhere you turn, your rump is behind you. It's the only person that you can't escape is yourself. And sometimes I want some peace and quiet, and then I get some peace and quiet, and I realize that I'm still there with me. So
yeah, no, I don't know if I've ever. To my knowledge, I don't feel like I've ever a depression. I've definitely I've been through some, and I've gone through some moments where I've turned very much. I turned people away. I became maybe that is a form of depression. Like I know people like who have had real hard fights with depression and stuff. So like I don't ever want to claim that I know what they're going. But like I've definitely had some dark days, momentary, because they were situational. It wasn't an internal battle. It was definitely stuff that was going on in the outside. You know, and my reality was causing me to just want to.
Yeah.
But in those moments, okay, so I've talked about this before. Real talk here. It was around the time my dad got diagnosed with Alzheimer's. We went, okay, it was summer 2020. It was summer 2020. Okay. Our family's trip to Nashville got canceled because we had tickets to a show at the Ryman that got canceled. There were some other things that just ended up not happening because everything was shut down summer of 2020. So we didn't end up going to Tennessee. We ended up replacing that trip with a trip to Hocking Hills, and we got a cabin with my family and I, my parents, and it was about the time of my dad's health starting to decline, or at least we started to acknowledge and go, hey, so we had an idea. And on top of that, COVID was still looming very, very, very heavily. It was the first time where I couldn't shut like my voice out. My chest was tight in bed. Like I was tired. Like I didn't have any caffeine. Like I just couldn't sleep. I heard like voices were screaming in my head. Chest was tight, and like I was just, yeah, it was crazy. And I just, it was visceral, audible voices in my head. And I'm laying in bed, and I'm like, yeah, I can't. But it was my thought, and it's that was rough. That was the first time kid couldn't shut those voices. And it's sort of going, but to really to what you were saying, just like I haven't experienced that often, but that was horrifying. And
yeah, mental health is a tricky pickle.
Do love a good pickle.
Vlasic, that's a good pickle. This episode of So Screen Bias is brought to you by Vlasic Pickles.
Next week's guest will be the stork.
Yeah.
The bird or whatever.
You want to get into wrap-up questions? I don't have much more for this movie.
I don't either. I wanted more from it.
Yeah.
I didn't hate it. Like there was some cool, the one shot at the end, which is actually, I saw imagery for when I was looking up stuff online and stuff where they're on the hill.
Yeah.
And you've got death on one end. Like there were some cool images from this film.
Interestingly, almost none of that is the cast.
It doesn't surprise. That was probably all done post-production, and
it was like the last day of filming. Everybody had already gone home. A couple of them were tourists.
That's fun. It's like I enjoyed aspects of this film. I wanted to like it more. I found it lackluster. I wanted more of that spiritual warfare. I wanted more of that end times. I wanted more of the Black Plague. Like there was all these different aspects that they just kept touching on. There was a lot of dancing to different topics, and there was actually a lot of dancing in this movie too. The actors, and there was dancing. No, okay. But anyways, yeah, I wasn't enthralled with it.
Yeah, this wasn't aliens bad to me, but I probably wouldn't have finished this on my own. I probably would have finished it because I wanted to see, well, where does this go?
Right.
And it just doesn't go anywhere. In that way, it's kind of like The Catcher in the Rye or one of those books around that time, where it's like this just kind of story about nothing. Overall, it's fine. I won't watch it again.
I also rated this under Aliens above Alien.
You rated Aliens better than Alien?
Oh, absolutely. The second Aliens was way better than the first.
Agree to disagree.
And this was in the middle of those two.
Okay. Well, let's get into wrap-up questions.
Let's do it. Yeah, I feel like this is the first movie that was like, this was one of the most spiritual movies or spiritual adjacent movies that we've had in a while. And it, brought up some good things. We've had some Catholicism come up and stuff, but there's a lot of Christian elements in this. So it was, I didn't really pick stuff from the movie, but I danced around some of the topics and hope that was good enough for our audience. Would you recommend this?
No.
Me neither. No. I don't have much more to say on that. Would you change the rating? It's not rated.
No, I would leave it unrated.
Yeah. There's nothing inappropriate about it. There's no jump scares.
There's a baby boy pee-pee for a lot, actually.
There's some butt cheeks, but none of it's close up.
No.
There's an implied affair, but it's not rated. I wouldn't rate it. Has it aged well?
I think it's probably aged fine. I don't think it's any worse today than it was when it came out. I just think it's
fine. Yeah.
Not for me.
I really like the aesthetic of a black and white film, but I haven't found one that's completely captive. Psycho's way better than this. Psycho had a cool vibe. I'm looking at my list. I feel like I rated a black and white. Oh, Doctor Strangelove. Doctor Strangelove was cool. Like I like the aesthetic of black and white, but this now he could have done this in color, right?
1957.
57. On the Waterfront was black and white. Now it's 54.
When was Rear Window?
54. Yeah. So he could have done this in color.
Yeah.
So this could have been in color.
49 was when Wizard of Oz came out, and that was the first color movie.
I'm excited to do that.
Let's see. I would say that this probably lands around Exorcist for me. I gave Exorcist 1 star.
I put this above Exorcist.
I gave Alien 2 stars. Yeah,
Okay.
it's probably somewhere in there. Yeah, it's just fine.
Yeah.
I don't hate it.
It could have been better.
Yeah.
It failed at a lot of things. A little bit better writing, a little bit more in depth. It could have been cool.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, what is this even? So
well, then the next question will be easy. Would this be on your top 250?
Yeah, of course.
Oh.
No.
Okay. I didn't this would also not be on my top 250.
Yeah.
Okay, but here's one. This is where this question, I enjoy we ask this question.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's on the top 250 now?
I have literally no idea. I don't get it.
Yeah, for me, the only thing my biggest takeaway from this film was the cinematography, which was okay at best, but there were still moments where I'm like, that's a cool shot. That's okay, it's kind of cool. And so I don't know, maybe it was ahead of its time, but it wasn't. I don't know. I want to give a better answer than that.
Yeah, I genuinely have no idea why it's there.
Yeah. Sorry, folks. This movie stumped us.
Yeah. Please comment. If you go to Patreon, even if you're not a paid Patreon subscriber, you can still subscribe for free and leave comments on our feedback posts on released episodes. Tell us, why do you think it's in the top 250? What are Jeff and I missing?
Yeah.
About this movie?
Yeah, that's it. What's next week? Let me check my notes here. Next week is the soap making movie.
We're gonna be watching Fight Club. We'll be having a guest, Zach, the GM and host of Mortals and Portals, a Pathfinder actual play podcast, and he's gonna come on and talk to us about escapism and make believe.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
That's going to be real fun.
For the uninitiated Pathfinder, it's Dungeons & Dragons.
And you're a Dungeons & Dragons guy, right, Nelson?
I am. I'm a Pathfinder 2nd edition fan specifically.
Okay.
But we in the hobby, we kind of just call it all Dungeons & Dragons because that's what people know.
I've tried playing it. I wish I liked it. I just don't have the patience. It's a commitment. And I admire the commitment you have to make to play this game, because these games can go on for days. These games can go, and obviously you can do shorter campaigns, but
I will say it doesn't have to be a commitment, and it also depends who you're playing with.
Yeah.
I've played with people where a night flies by and it's a ton of fun, and others where it feels like we're doing accounting. So
those are the nights I dream of.
And those are, it depends on the group, depends on how you want to play.
Yeah.
But it's one of my favorite hobbies.
And have you seen Fight Club before?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I've seen it once.
And I've read it.
I remember not liking it. So and as of recording this episode right now,
yeah,
I have not watched the movie for the next episode yet.
Yeah.
So I am actually excited to watch this again.
There you go.
Being that there's been a lot of time that's passed and I barely remember.
Yeah.
I remember a little bit of the twist, but I barely remember
of the three main
movie.
cast. Is Helena Bonham Carter in MCU yet?
Let me fact check. So Edward Norton is.
Yep.
Brad Pitt
is.
What is he in the MCU?
In Deadpool 2, he's the invisible man that parachutes into the telephone pole and gets electrocuted and dies.
Let me check. That's a beautiful name. She's a great actress.
Face that launched 1,000 ships. Helena Troy.
She's got a hell in a face. Let's see. Let me look at her. Humming to I don't know, because this is we're not affiliated with IMDb. We just pull a lot of our sources from IMDb. I go to IMDb first for my things, and yes, I could Google it and it could be quicker. But I don't. I choose not to. I don't think she is.
She's not.
Yeah, I was hoping there was like a deep cut of like maybe an uncredited thing, but
no.
Yeah, she's not it.
She's not yet been in the MCU.
She would be a great Iron Man.
All right. Anything else for us?
She could be a superhero like Black Widow.
Oh, I did get feedback on that as well.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Am I in the wrong? Does everyone? Yeah, of course.
Anybody that has
everyone that
contacted
listens
me
to this
about
podcast is all like, for some reason, no one sees my site in this podcast
Jeff,
audience.
I'm sure there are people that sided with you.
No,
they just didn't contact me about it.
It's all the libertarians that tend to be more opinionated and voice their opinions.
Yeah,
I would love to hear some support.
Yeah, please write us.
Tell me I'm right.
Please write in and tell us why Jeff is right about something.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm very excited for Fight Club. I have not watched it yet as of this recording. I'm excited to jump into that. Not related to John Bonham of Led Zeppelin. That'd be cool though. And also not married to Johnny Depp, which I thought.
It's Bono, isn't it?
No, John Bonham. John Bonham was the drummer of Led Zeppelin.
Sorry, I was thinking
Bono is U2.
Of U2.
Yeah, Bono. But all right, well, hey, that's all I've got.
Yeah. Check out our Patreon.
Yes. It's the best way to support us. I also want to say that there's only a couple more weeks. There's to the end of the month of December to get our limited shirt that we partnered with Cassie, our good friend Cassie, to do a shirt for us.
Only 6 more weeks.
6 more weeks. So don't sleep on that.
Yeah.
If you want a limited shirt, there will be more of those. So this will be the beginning of the collection. If you're a collector, get the shirt now.
That's right.
Don't wait.
And my personal favorite, the foul-mouthed duck.
Yes.
All right.
See you.
I think that's it for us. See you next week.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did.
If you have found value in what we discussed today, please consider leaving us a rating and review. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode.
If you have any feedback or suggestions, we would love to hear from you.
That's right. Tell us why we're wrong.
If you want even more content and ways to engage with us and each other, check out our Patreon page.
By supporting us there, you'll get access to exclusive bonus content and help us continue to create high-quality episodes, as well as help pay for our future plans. Links to our social media, merchandise, and Patreon are in the show notes.